Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready for another deep dive?
Always.
Awesome. Today we're digging into IAMGOLD Corporation's Q3 2024 results.
Ooh, gold mining.
Yeah, we've got their press release and the presentation from their earnings call.
Investor-focused stuff.
Exactly. So we can really get into the nitty-gritty.
Love it.
So for anyone who needs a quick refresher, IAMGOLD is a Canadian company with mines all over the world.
And they just opened a brand new one right here in Canada.
Yep, the Côté Gold Mine in Ontario. And spoiler alert, it's already exceeding expectations.
Sounds promising.
It does. Okay, so let's start with the press release. They're painting a pretty rosy picture overall, strong revenue numbers.
Yeah, that definitely jumped out at me. Revenue hit almost $439 million this quarter.
Wow, that's a big jump. Where's that coming from?
Well, a large part of that is thanks to Côté Gold. It's starting to contribute in a big way.
Makes sense, a brand new mine coming online like that. It sounds like Côté Gold is a real game changer for them.
Definitely, but they're not without their challenges.
Right. What else did you pick up on?
Well, while Côté Gold is doing great, their Essakane mine in Burkina Faso is facing some security issues.
Yeah. I remember reading about that ongoing terrorist activity.
Exactly. It's really impacting their supply chains and creating logistical nightmares.
Makes you realize how global events can impact a company even when their operations are running smoothly.
For sure. It's a complex world out there.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's go back to Côté Gold for a second. This mine seems like a pretty big deal. They hit record throughput in October.
They did. Over 42,000 tons per day.
Wow. And remind you what the throughput means again.
It's basically how much ore they can process each day, a measure of their efficiency.
Got it. So they're extracting gold really efficiently at Côté Gold.
Yep, and they actually surpassed their own target. They were aiming for 90% of their designed throughput capacity.
Impressive, especially since they had that planned shutdown in September.
Right, they were implementing some optimizations.
Sounds like they paid off. Now, what about their other big mine, Essakane? How's that performing?
Still producing a good amount of gold, over 100,000 ounces this quarter.
And that's with all the security challenges.
Yeah, they're attributing the increase to higher throughput and good grade performance.
So they're managing despite the difficulties.
Exactly, but it's definitely adding to their costs.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's switch gears for a minute. They've got this interesting financial move happening. They're buying back a stake in the Côté Gold Mine.
Right, a 9.7% stake.
Can you unpack that for us?
Sure. So back in 2022, they partnered with Sumitomo Metal Mining to help fund the construction of Côté Gold.
Needed some extra cash.
Exactly. Sumitomo put in $250 million, but got that 9.7% stake in return. Now IAMGOLD is buying it back.
A sign of confidence.
Seems like they're basically saying, hey, we believe in this mine so much we want full control.
And it sounds like they're in a good financial position to do it.
Oh, yeah. They ended the quarter with over $959 million in liquidity.
And they've got this funding agreement with Sumitomo to help with the buyback.
Yep. The deal closes on November 30th.
Okay, something to watch out for. So it sounds like a smart strategic move.
For sure.
Yeah.
They're getting full ownership of a mine that's performing really well.
Okay, so they also mentioned these gold prepay arrangements in the release. What are those all about?
Well, imagine you need cash now, but, you'll have a lot of gold later.
Okay, I'm following.
You could make a deal to get that cash up front, and in exchange, you promise to deliver a certain amount of gold at a set date in the future.
Like a loan, but you're paying back in gold instead of cash.
Exactly. That's essentially what a gold prepay arrangement is.
Interesting. So it helps them now, but could cost them more if the price of gold goes up later.
Right. There's always a trade-off. But it's a pretty common practice in the mining industry.
All right, let's move on to another one of their mines, Westwood.
Westwood. This one's in Quebec.
What's the story there?
It's actually a bit of a turnaround story. They had some operational challenges in the past.
Right, I remember hearing about that.
But they implemented a new underground mining method, and it seems to be working. Well, their production is up 28% compared to last year.
That's a significant jump.
It is. And get this, their costs are down too.
Really? Even with increased production?
Yep. They're seeing lower cash costs and all-in sustaining costs this year.
Wow, talk about a win-win. And there's more good news. Remember how we talk about a used car that turns out to be a hidden gem?
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of what's happening with Westwood. Its value is going up. They even had an impairment reversal on their financial statement.
Things are looking up for Westwood.
For sure. Increased production, lower costs, and a higher valuation.
Yeah.
You can't ask for much more.
Nope. That's a winning combination.
Okay, so last question for this part. Are they doing anything to invest in future growth?
Absolutely. They've got an active exploration program going on.
And what are they looking for?
Well, they're exploring near their existing infrastructure, hoping to find more gold deposits.
So expanding what they already have.
Exactly. For example, at Côté Gold, they're looking at the nearby Gosselin deposit.
Interesting. And what does that involve?
Drilling programs mostly, and studies to see if it makes sense to integrate Gosselin into the Côté Gold mine plan.
So potentially even more gold coming from that area. And what about exploration for totally new deposits?
They're working on that too. They've got projects at Nelligan and Monster Lake, both in Quebec.
Sounds like they're covered all their bases, maximizing production at their current mines, exploring for new ones, and making smart financial moves.
A lot to keep track of, but we're just getting started.
True. We've only scratched the surface. We'll dig deeper into their financials and overall strategy in the next part.
Can't wait.
Welcome back. Before we jump back into the numbers, this is something else I wanted to touch on.
Oh, yeah. What's that?
ESG, environmental, social, and governance.
Oh, right. ESG. It's a big topic these days.
It is, and IAMGOLD seems to be taking it seriously. They've got a whole section in their press release dedicated to it.
Interesting. So they're trying to position themselves as leaders in sustainable mining.
That's the impression I got. They talk about a culture of accountable mining, and they've set some ambitious targets for reducing their environmental impact.
Like what?
Well, they're developing a water stewardship framework and a water management standard.
That makes sense. Especially for a mine like Essakane. It's in a water-stressed region.
Exactly. They can't just operate without considering their impact on water resources.
Right. It's not just about being eco-conscious. It's about ensuring their own long-term sustainability.
And investors are paying attention to this stuff, too.
Absolutely. ESG performance is a big factor in investment decisions these days.
For sure. Okay, so let's get back to the financials. What stood out to you from the earnings call presentation?
One thing they emphasized was their commitment to reducing debt.
Deleveraging.
Exactly. They've already made some good progress. They paid down a big chunk of their high-cost debt earlier this year.
So they're using their cash strategically.
Yeah, it shows they're focused on strengthening their financial foundation.
And that's actually why they're not planning to increase shareholder returns in 2025. No dividends or share buybacks.
Right. They're putting all their efforts into reducing debt further.
Smart move for long-term stability.
Exactly. Think of it like this. You could spend your money now or invest it to make even more money later.
Makes sense. Okay, so the presentation also breaks down their capital expenditures, where they're investing their money.
Right. Gives you some insight into their priorities.
What are they focusing on?
Two main things: sustaining their current operations and investing in future growth.
So like maintaining your car versus buying a new one.
Yeah, something like that. Right now, they're mostly focused on maintaining what they have and optimizing performance.
Especially at Côté Gold.
Yep. They're still doing some exploration to find new opportunities, but the bulk of their spending is on making sure their existing mines are running smoothly.
Makes sense. They also mentioned something about selling some of their assets.
Oh, yeah, the Bamuk assets in West Africa.
Right. They've been trying to divest those for a while now.
It's like selling something you don't use anymore to free up some cash.
To invest in other things that are more important.
Exactly. If they can get those transactions through, it'll give them even more financial flexibility.
Interesting. So overall, what's your take on their strategy? Are they on the right track?
I think so. They're focused on maximizing production at their key assets while also looking ahead to future growth.
And they're making smart financial decisions.
Yeah, and they're showing a commitment to responsible mining practices.
It's a tough industry, but it seems like they've got a good plan.
Yeah, Côté Gold seems like a real turning point for them.
It is. It's a large-scale, long-life mine with a ton of potential.
For sure. If they can keep costs under control and ramp up production there, it'll be a major driver of growth for them.
And their stock price has been reflecting that positive sentiment.
Yep. Investors are taking notice, but of course the gold price always plays a big role.
True. Okay, so what does the future hold for IAMGOLD? What are your predictions?
Well, they've given some guidance for the rest of the year.
Right. They're still expecting to hit their original production target.
Between 570,000 and 640,000 ounces of gold.
Not bad, considering the issues at Essakane.
It shows they're confident in their ability to meet their goals, and they're also expecting to lower their costs.
Thanks to Côté Gold and Westwood.
Yep, those mines are expected to have lower operating costs than Essakane.
Makes sense.
Oh,
So increased production and lower costs. Sounds like a recipe for success.
It does. And they're not stopping there. They're already thinking about expanding Côté Gold.
Beyond the current mine plan.
Exactly. They're exploring the possibility of incorporating the Gosselin deposit.
Wow, ambitious.
It is, especially since they're still in the early stages of Côté Gold's operation. but it shows they're thinking long-term.
And they're continuing exploration at Nelligan and Monster Lake, too.
Right. Always looking for new opportunities. It's a smart, balanced approach.
Okay, so it sounds like IAMGOLD is in a pretty good spot.
Yeah, they've overcome some challenges, hit some major milestones, and they've got a solid plan in place.
They're in a strong financial position, their key operations are doing well, and they're committed to responsible mining.
Absolutely. It'll be interesting to see what they do next.
It's really interesting to see how they're putting those ESG principles into action, especially at Côté Gold.
Yeah, it's one thing to talk about responsible mining. It's another to actually do it.
Totally. And
Right.
from what I've read, they're really going above and beyond at Côté Gold.
Yeah, they're using some pretty advanced tech to minimize their environmental impact, and they've got these strict monitoring programs in place,
To make sure they're meeting their targets. And they talk a lot about working with First Nations communities, too.
which is so important for any mining project in Canada.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's not just about getting permission to operate, it's about building those relationships and creating partnerships that benefit everyone.
Exactly. It's about recognizing the impact mining can have on Indigenous communities and working together to make sure that impact is positive.
And it's not just about the environment either. They're also committed to creating jobs and supporting the local economy.
Right. That's a big part of responsible mining, making sure the benefits extend beyond the company itself.
So if you're interested in learning more about how IAMGOLD is approaching ESG and community partnerships,
Definitely check out their website. They've got tons of info on their progress and their goals.
it's inspiring to see a company that's not just focused on profits, but also on making a positive impact.
For sure. It seems like they're really trying to raise the bar for the whole industry.
Well said.
Yeah.
All right, so we've covered a lot of ground today,
We have, from record throughput to ESG initiatives.
and everything in between. What's one key takeaway you want to leave our listeners with?
I think what stands out to me is their commitment to community engagement.
Yeah.
It seems like it's really at the heart of everything they do.
Yeah, they're going above and beyond, especially when it comes to working with First Nations communities near Côté Gold.
And creating jobs for local people. It's a long-term approach that can really benefit everyone involved.
If you're curious to learn more about IAMGOLD and all their initiatives, head over to their website.
They've got all the details there.
Great. Well, that brings us to the end of another deep dive.
Thanks for having me.
It was a pleasure as always. And thanks to everyone for listening. We'll be back soon with another insightful look at the business world. Until then, keep learning, keep exploring, and keep diving deep.